good evening, or more so good night already. So I've slept during the day. After a couple of nights without sleep. So my avid subscribers already are aware of this indeed strange habit. It's not a new one at all, of from time to time just not to sleep for 2 or 3 nights. This has a couple of explanations. It started just because of the state terrorism that I was subjected to all sort of sound terror attacks during the night. It started maybe 8 or 9 years ago, and they still do it. And this is it's got like a huge implications on the body and like on the mind and and one of the things that it initially subconsciously, but later, I mean, when you understand what's going on, it's become consciously. But it's initially you just don't understand what's happening, but you subconsciously become afraid of sleep. Something like what you see in Freddy Krueger movies. So that it happened to me starting like maybe 8 years ago. But then you understand. I mean, after some time, I mean, of course, along with the other discoveries, you understand that. But yes, I mean, the internal intelligence services of the war of these places, they are torturing you, and you understand that they have all sorts of like, I mean, that a lot of what they do depends on presumably the successful implementation of hypnotic triggers on you, and that's like, I mean, a huge part of what they do is that they try to implant these triggers on you, and much of it is done during the sleep, and then presumably by, the actual way that, they use triggers is rather ridiculous. I mean, it's kind of like, I mean, almost funny, I would say, even though the intention behind it is sinister. It's not funny at all, but I mean, you know, to send you also, like, I mean, you know, like smartphone notification with specific numbers or names or like, I don't know, sometimes it's mostly also for like, I mean, numbers, names, or words like keywords like focus, or I mean, you know, or objects. I mentioned like in the past many times, like motorcycle with a boat. Also, I mean, kufiko, you know, all sorts of like, I mean, specific terms that supposedly were implanted on you mostly while you were sleeping, and that, I mean, these when you are awake, supposedly when you are aware of these I would say items, and I mean, or words or names. I mean, then you are supposedly. So the question is, okay, what should happen when supposedly when you are awake and you are, I mean, you receive these messages, or you like, I mean, you hear these names. So what's supposed to happen then? So actually, I don't know, because I don't think that it ever worked on me. Like, I mean, and if, I mean, certainly it doesn't work as planned, because you see that, I mean, obviously I do not demonstrate behaviors that are the behaviors that the Shabak would want me to behave like. I mean, for many years now. I mean, it's pretty obvious that I mean, you need to be very, very original, and like to show remarkably like inventive powers of invention in order to come up with a theory that will explain how this channel and everything that I do and speak about is aligned in any way with the interests of the Shabak. So I mean, so obviously, I mean, this hypnotic method does not 100% work on me, and I would say that it probably work like 0% on me. But they keep trying, because I mean, I spoke about it many times. It's amazing, like how much. I mean, these are like adults. They are not like children, even though in their mind they are children. but I mean, it's amazing to see like an organization of adults that, I mean, they act like, I mean, like at max I would say like youth organization, like, I mean, like scouts or something like that. I mean, at most, like, I mean, and probably like closer to kindergarten. I mean, because I mean it's ridiculous, but that's the way they act. I mean, much of what they do. So, but 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 the but but certainly, I mean, it hurts you. I mean, it hurted me a lot because it affected my sleep. Because the way that he implanted on you is much of it is done during this time that you sleep, and this is done by sound. And yes, it affects your sleep. It affected my sleep, and and uh, and. Uh, and then I started, like, I mean, to avoid sleep. I mean, but in the beginning subconsciously, and then later consciously. So much later than that, I also understood that there is a strong relation between that. But this is theory that I presented like almost a year ago, and I still try to understand what's going. I mean, I'm still trying to understand, like, I mean, exactly what's happening. And I mean, it's not like a complete theory. It's certainly not grounded in evidence. So but there is also another thing that relates to the neurons in my body. That's, I mean, that they die or they suffer tremendously during the sleep, and it's something that related both to, like, to the conditions of, like, the rooms that I'm in, and also it's probably something environmental, and I'm not sure. I mean, I'm still not sure, like, I mean, what's exactly happening. I need like more evidence, and I don't have the tools to actually to because, I mean, by definition, any kind of, like, I mean, experiment on this subject could be done when I'm asleep, but I don't have anyone, like, to help me, like, I mean, and like I have no, like, I mean, this could not be done if, like, so automatically such experiment could only be taken place, like, I mean, by someone else, like, when I'm asleep. So it's difficult for me to understand. But I after some time I had enough, like, I would say, circumstantial evidence or indirect evidence that something really bad is I mean, is happening to the neurons in my body while I'm asleep, and most often it relates to, like, into the environment, like something in the room or in the building, in the street, I don't know, in the land, I don't know. I mean, and this is aside from the, and this is like another factor in, like, in addition to the terror attacks, like, I mean, that hinder my sleep. So yes, certainly all of this together, I mean, created and kind of like of course, unhealthy aversion of sleep. That of course, I never had it, like, when I was a child or a teenager or a very young adult. It started, like, I mean, certainly this issue is, and the development of this very unhealthy aversion of sleep is correlated greatly with the increase of interests of the Israeli intelligence that they had on me. Like, I mean, the more they are, I mean, or should I say that the development of, like, of the idea that I'm, like, supposedly a valuable target, so I should be, of course, monitored all the time and also terrorized, because that's how they treat their targets. By the way, you should, I mean, and any person could ask themselves, I mean, why is it that obvious that the proper way for intelligence organization to act, like, towards a target, supposedly, let's suppose that, I mean, there is a target, I mean, like a person with a target, I mean, is it obvious that I mean, the natural way to treat the target is by violence and torture? So, I mean, I mean, after some time, you just, I mean, you get used to it. That's the way Israelis act. I mean, that for them it's natural. I mean, yeah, probably it's not rational. Like, it doesn't serve their purposes. I mean, but when you live in Israel long enough and you see how they act, you understand that they are not rational people. They act. Many of the things they do it like because they're used to do it. They don't really think about it. They just they have like the normal procedures, and many of these procedures are completely illogical and of course immoral. But that's the way it is. And one of these, I would say, procedures is that the people that that are considered target by the intelligence organizations. It doesn't matter why. There can be so many reasons why a person could be considered a target for an intelligence organization. A tremendous amount of reasons. But in Israel, it doesn't matter what the reason. It's like a standard procedure that everybody that belongs to the intelligence services that can torture these guys, they torture them. It's kind of like a natural behavior, like, without even they don't need to think why and and like what the purpose that it serves. They only need to know. And there's so many of them there, so they only need to know that a person that in their vicinity is a target, and that's enough for them to just torture this guy. They don't need any more reason, and they certainly don't need kind of like an objective to this torture. The torture is the objective in itself. So I think I'm going to maybe eat a good meal now and take a shower, and then maybe we'll speak about the origin story some more. But before that, I wanted to I had a thought now that I don't want to forget it, so I will record this thought. So kind of an interesting idea. So there is much, I would say, interest in the demonic insects, because really now I've rewatched the video 2 times, and really it's obviously what I say that it is. It's not kind of misinterpretation of the evidence. You don't need to be a biologist to say that without a doubt what we see in these slides are several. Maybe 3 or 4 insects are on the making, that they are insects that they are pretty advanced stage in the making, but not ready, not done, and they are built by the robots, by the nanobots, and in itself it's not new. We've seen this stuff. It's the concept of nano-microscopic life forms that are created by nanoneos is well documented in this channel, mostly worms of various sizes. But what was now special is that this happened inside a container that was literally burning with turpentine, and enriched fuel, wax fuel, and so obviously these creatures went, and then obviously by the level of details, I'm certain that these creatures were supposed to be living. They were built towards the final objective of being living creatures, not sculptures, because the neos can also make sculptures, and we've seen them create sculptures in the past of all sorts of things, including of living things. And so this and this can be confusing, because sometimes there is a question if what are they making now, a sculpture or a living thing? You could say maybe in the first months or 2 months of these experiments, there was still a question whether maybe everything that they do is sculpture. But then we saw the worms start to move, and the question was disappeared. Even though still some people can say, okay, these are robots, but I don't really care if you call it robots or living creatures or demons. Whatever, demons, robots, or living creatures. For me, it's all the same. These categories are only they can be useful. It's any kind of categories, but intrinsically I see no difference between like robots or humans or demons. I mean, they are all, I mean, they are, from my perspective, demons, robots, humans, they are all, I mean, subcategories of of phenomenon that I call life. Now you can say that, I mean, that you define life differently, and I assume many of you do, but I mean, I should just, I mean, again, remind you that humans like define life in very different ways throughout their history. It's not like that humanity, that you have like a strict definition of what is life. It's, I mean, that they kind of like it's like a dogma. I mean, and the definition of life even it's still like changing. Like, I mean, even inside the biological science. So I mean, it's not that like humanity like had like had like a long its history and like various cultures, like, I mean, like an accepted definition of life. No, they never did. They always defined life in different ways, and it's still, and when like and when the scientific prominence of like the biological sciences became like something that is universal, or I mean, not like, I mean, it replaced like other traditions as like the prominent way of how to understand the natural the natural phenomenon around you on Earth. It's not that then, I mean, then like there was like a new definition, like a standard definition of life was created and replaced all the older definitions of life. No, what happened is that I mean, the argument continued, and it continues to this day. So I mean, that the argument now takes place in the universities, but it's still an argument. Like, I mean, still there is still no, like, I mean, still people do not like, I mean, there is no like universal like, I mean, understanding of like what is life, and it's still like, I mean, in kind of like always developing like the concept of life inside the biological sciences. So I mean, but whatever you want to believe, like, I mean, about life, I just say that in my terminology, this is the concept is very wide, and it includes what you might define as human, and it's also what you might define as robots, and also what you might define as demons. So it's all under in my terminology. This is all, it all goes under definition of life. Now, another important point that we can actually to the right from this slide, like with those creatures, that, I mean, this is a kind of like maybe surprising, a little bit surprising, I would say, consequence, but I should just remind you that not a while ago, I mean, I discussed the Fermi paradox, and it was the first time I spoke about it quite some times, in mostly kind of like, I mean, in a funny way, like, I mean, in a condescending way, because I think it's stupid. Because, I mean, it's not stupid because, I mean, it's important, because it created like an important discussion, like scientific discussion, and also speculative discussion, that was very important and fruitful for people, I mean, to kind of like, I mean, to think about the universe. And this is very important, that humans should think about like what's around them, like I mean, for many reasons. So, and the Fermi paradox that, I mean, started doing that, I mean, people started to think about it maybe like 50 or 60 years ago, but I mean, it's all getting more traction with the years, especially like, I mean, of course, in circles of people, in discourses, I mean, of people that are interested in science fiction and futurism, and like, I mean, try to think about, like, I mean, you know, about the universe at large and the places of humans inside the universe. So in this discourse, the Fermi paradox, even though in itself I think it's like inherently it's stupid, but it created an important discussion. So the discussion around the Fermi paradox is not stupid, and part of it is very intelligent and certainly fruitful, but the question itself is kind of stupid. I mean, it's a stupid question with very interesting and smart answers. I mean, but the question itself is stupid. Even though, yes, I mean, many of the answers are very original and, like, I mean, thought-provoking and interesting. still, I mean, the question doesn't make. I mean, it's just. I mean, so I mean, the question of the Fermi paradox is kind of in the original way, like the original articulation is like, if there are so many aliens like all over the universe, because presumably there are so many planets, so why should there? So I mean, it makes sense that at least some of them should contain life, and some of these life forms could have, like I mean, potentially evolve to be intelligent, and I mean, statistically speaking, this could have happened long ago because we know that, I mean, the universe is, I mean, the age of the universe is like, it's always changing, but I mean, according to the current understanding, it's about like 14.5 billion years, and the origin of like, and the age of the Earth is like 4.5 billion, and according to what people know today, life started to evolve on Earth relatively very quickly after it was created, like maybe like 4 billion years ago, which means that like in geological scale, it means that life, I mean, it didn't take much like for life to start evolving, even though of course then, I mean, still it took quite long like for multicellular life to appear, because it's like a big jump. And then, I mean, but I mean, so when you crunch these numbers, it's like it makes sense according to the people that, I mean, I mean, that introduce the Fermi paradox, and they are right in that I mean, it only these numbers, even if they are not accurate completely, like most certainly that the age of the universe, most certainly, if it's going to be adjusted in the future by humans, like future human scientists, most certainly it will be for the upper side. It's probably not going to happen that you will say that, okay, so we were wrong, the universe is not 14.5 billion years old, it's just 6,000 years old. It's not going to happen. I mean, if adjustment will be made, they will probably be to the upper side. So I mean, you will discover that the universe is actually older than what you think now. So when you crunch these numbers, yes, the logical and mathematical consequence is that intelligent life should have appeared on the universe long before humans, and of course that they have. I mean, it's both the consequence and it's just correct. I mean, it's true logically and empirically. I mean, the empirical part is now speaking with you right now, okay? But it's beside it. I mean, it's also logical from a mathematical perspective, and people understood it long ago, like 50 or 60 or 70 years ago. People started to speak about it. So the original Fermi's question is, okay, so mathematically there should be many life forms in this universe, and some of them should be very intelligent, and some of them should be much older than humans. So where are they? I mean, why aren't they come here to just, say hello and, I don't know, drink a beer with us or whatever? Where are they? Supposedly this is a paradox. Now, later in the history of the 20th century thought, a new articulation of this paradox became prominent, which is even more stupid than the original one. But again, it's another stupid question, but also, but I admit that the discourse around it is interesting. I mean, it's another stupid question that with many interesting answers. So I wouldn't say that, I do not mock the people that speak about it, because I admit that it's interesting, and it was interesting for me to read about all sorts of answers to this question, even though I say that I think that the question is stupid. But so another question appeared, later in the 20th century, I mean, starting the 70s or the 80s, I think mostly the 80s, starting in the 1980s, and it's only get more traction. I mean, this was not disappeared. It's got more traction and more people that are, again, it's not like, I mean, something that you're going to like read about like in the first page of the New York Times, but it's in something that, I mean, that got traction inside like circles of people that, I mean, that are interested in futurism and science fiction and kind of like, I mean, the place of humans in this universe. So another question started to appear mostly, I mean, starting in the 1980s, which is, it's kind of like a variation of the Fermi paradox that is even more ridiculous than the original, I mean, like version. So according to this version, it goes something like that. I mean, they say, okay, there should be all sorts of, I mean, there should be now or in the past, there should have been like, according to probability, intelligent civilizations in this universe, and we don't know what happened to them or what's their whereabouts now, but we assume that these civilizations, when they developed, I mean, eventually they left their planets, like, I mean, they became space-faring civilizations. Like humanity is kind of like, I mean, a liminal space-faring civilizations. I mean, I mean, so we are here on definitions. Humanity is not really a space-faring civilization, but I would say that, I mean, presumably if they will live, which probably they will not, but if they were not stupid enough like to mess with powers that are far beyond their, I mean, far bigger than them, like in kind of like an alternative history for humanity, they were not that stupid, and but if like when you look like on their current technology level, you can say okay, so they will become like space-faring civilization in not in a long time from now. So they are kind of like, I mean, liminal space-faring civilization. I mean, yes, they sent like people to the moon, or like, I don't know, probes to the Voyager to whatever. I mean, but these are, I mean, not really like, I mean, they're kind of like, I mean, introduction to real like space age. I mean, it's still not really, I mean, part of a space age. It's more like, I mean, introduction to the space age. But I mean, many people think, but that, I mean, it makes sense that other civilizations that predate humans have actually become like space civilizations that can really, I mean, live there. I mean, maybe some stay. I mean, I don't say that, I mean, they abandon their original planet, but at least some of them like left the original planet and started to do all sorts of things like in all sorts of other places. So I mean, that the question is, this is the I would say the kind of like, I mean, the assumption of the question. So the question goes like that: such civilizations, presumably, they require a lot of energy, because, and right here I must say that, I mean, even the first sentence is not true. I mean, everything about the question is untrue. But anyway, the question is that goes like that. I mean, so they require energy. I mean, we see that humans, the more they develop, the more energy they require. I mean, if you just, I mean, compare the energy like consumption of an average American, like an average citizen of the United States, to the energy consumption of, like, I mean, of less developed state, like, I mean, I don't know, for like a person maybe in like, I don't know. Think about like any country in Africa, for example. I don't want to use the specific name, so it will not like sound like shaming them. But I mean, think about compare that to the average energy consumption of a citizen in any country in Africa. So we'll see a huge, I mean, difference. So So presumably this is kind of like, I mean, a trajectory that says that, I mean, that the people that humans require, I mean, not humans, like intelligent creatures require energy. The more they develop, the more they require energy. And certainly, for some reason, this should be correct. I mean, and even more so when they're becoming space civilization. So they are energy hungry. They become hungry for energy. So they must like get it from somewhere, according to the question. So it makes sense that they get it from the stars, because the stars are I mean, every sentence in this question is incorrect. So it's even difficult for me to actually articulate it like in an objective way, because I think it's incredibly stupid. But yet it's the answers are interesting. So according to the question, like to the like, I mean, to the second version, which is also very common today, of the Fermi paradox. So these civilizations, presumably they need energy. Presumably the way to get it is directly from the stars, and presumably the way to do it is to encircle the stars with what, and this is like with things that are known as Dyson spheres. That this is kind of like a concept which is, I think, was invented during the 60s or the 70s, and like gradually became more prominent in science fiction. It appears, I think, that the Dyson spheres, yes, it appears in the it appeared in an episode in the Star Trek Next Generation, I think in 1990, and it was kind of like, I mean, kind of like it helped like to make this kind of like a very bizarre and niche concept. I mean, it's originated kind of like, I mean, in kind of like a bizarre scientific paper, like in kind of like a science paper, I think in the 60s or the 70s. And slowly it got traction, like, I mean, and then, yes, as I said, it even appeared, like, I mean, in Star Trek Next Generation during 1990, which, of course, helped it become more, like, popular in the general public. So it's the concept of, like, I mean, of encircling a star with an artificial structure that absorbs all the energy from the star. And what's happening is that first, I mean, the people, the creatures that created this kind of like artificial object, now they can use the energy to do whatever, and also the star cannot be seen because I mean the atmosphere blocks all light. Now there are other versions that that allow some light to get out, like Dyson Swarm or also but the Dyson sphere is kind of, it becomes the common like hypothetical kind of like construction, which became so prominent as that many people think that it's kind of like that it's natural, that it's a natural state of event that spacefaring civilization build these things. So according to the question, okay, so it makes sense that some civilization in the past of the universe or still now, they should build these kind of like Dyson spheres because they presumably need energy, and that's the way to get energy. So when we look on the star map, we have telescopes. Maybe we cannot reach the star, cannot actually reach the stars because you are not human stars, are not really space-faring civilization. As I said, they're only like it's kind of like they are in the introductory phase to be space-faring civilization. But they cannot really reach anywhere besides the moon, and even that is very difficult for them. So, and certainly they cannot reach the stars, not their own stars and not any other star. And they are that primitive that they think that it might even be impossible to reach other stars, which is certainly not the case. It is totally possible. But they look on other stars and they see, but they do have telescopes. And actually, right now, even lately, not long ago, a very, very, very expensive new one was erected in space. But even before that, of course, for many decades, humans have very sophisticated telescopes. So they can look at the stars. Even though they cannot reach the stars, they can look at the stars. And they're actually doing it for quite a while, because even like a million years ago, they already looked at the stars. It was actually much easier back in the day because there was no pollution. Maybe it's worth saying that, many people today do not even like the pollution, like both the air pollution, like the atmosphere pollution, but also the light pollution, becomes something that is so natural to humans today that they can't even imagine how their ancestors watched the sky, because it was completely different. The experience of watching looking up during the night, a very basic experience for humans in the past, was completely different than today. The thing that they saw was completely different, and they much more detailed than they saw today you almost see nothing compared to what you could have seen before all this pollution. Anyway, either when you use a telescope, or when you just look up at the sky, you don't see black spots you don't see. It looks uniform. Of course, you see shapes, and these shapes were humans were interested in these shapes since prehistory, and they even gave all sorts of interpretation to this shape, the signs, and then they connected these shapes to their own mythology, and later in their history, this shape became scientific objects, the nebulas and galaxies, but you don't see, presumably you could expect to see black stains, shape with with a black mark on it, maybe someone set his foot on the paper and leave on the paintings, and left and stained over there. And supposedly you should have seen it, because supposedly those civilizations that require all this energy and build all those Dyson spheres, they supposedly have done so in a way that must have created footprints on the star map, or on the painting that of the shapes that are made of the stars, that you can see either using telescope, but again, this could have humans could have watched it and do tremendously more detail in the past, before all this light and air pollution. So the question is, why is it so? Presumably it's a paradox, because you don't. The shapes looks like shapes. And they don't look like shapes with marks on them. Boots, the boot that was that on them. So what's the answer to these two stupid questions? As I said, these two questions are extremely stupid, but some of the answers are very interesting. But what's the correct answers? And the correct answers are actually not that interesting. But it's kind of a stupid question with incorrect answers, but the incorrect answers are very interesting. But the question is stupid, and the answer is very simple. So the answer to the first question is that you are disgusting. That's why they don't come to say hi. You are disgusting. Now, the answer to the second question is that almost every sentence in the question is incorrect. But let's focus on one aspect of this question, which is, how do you get energy from the stars? Let's suppose that intelligent civilizations are really that power hungry, which is actually completely that. It's not necessarily true at all. the fact that Americans consume so much more energy than people of in Africa doesn't mean that that civilizations that are much more advanced than Americans, keep the same trajectory and become only more and more power and hungry. It's just not true. It's completely false. It's completely false. But let's say that it is true, okay? And let's say that, for the sake of the argument of the paradox, let's say that the only way to get it is from the stars, which is also untrue, because humans already know about dark matter. But let's say that it is true, okay? And humans already know that but let's say that that you don't take dark matter into account at all. But and that the only way to get the energy is to get it to eat the stars. Even then, why do you think the Dyson sphere it makes any sense at all? Because there is a more intuitive and less cumbersome solution, which is, if you want the energy, go get it. Why do you need this kind of very complicated structure that will be permanent and will block the star and can be and also think about the environmental perspective again. People are worried today if the municipality is starting to plan to destroy a small local natural, I would say like a park or a small forest, and if they plan to build a new mall in city instead of this kind of a natural a garden or natural park. And they rightfully this is a true concern, because if, step by step, if you do it to all pieces of nature that are left, and many are not, not many are left. So if you do it indefinitely, eventually Earth will look like one piece of dystopian kind of a metropolis, which will be devastating to humans and to, of course, to other animals. So I do not say that it doesn't make sense. It makes sense, and it's that, and it's true that people today are worried about every little piece of forest that that is planned by someone in the municipality or in the state to transform to kind of a new industrial zone. So why at the same time that the modern humans became so occupied with the preserving every little piece of forest or park, but it makes totally sense for you that advanced civilizations will have no issue with deleting stars. Think about the application. When you delete a star from the map, you're worried about a little park in I don't know, a small piece of nature, that you think that, people will now transform into industrial zone, but you think that, a more advanced civilization will have no, they will not hesitate to delete stars. A star, you do understand what it means? With a star, you understand that the star also, it supports maybe it support life, or it could support life in the future of the planets and the moons and the asteroids. And can you imagine how much nature, with even in disregard to the question of intelligent life that might be or might wanted might evolve there in the future, even with can you understand how much nature, can you even comprehend the natural impact of deleting a star? Can you comprehend how much more, can you even comprehend how bigger it is than to delete a small park, than that you modern humans are very hesitant to do so, and Like, I mean, you block, like, all, and you demonstrate, and, I mean, you lobby, and, like, whenever, like, I mean, every little piece of land, like, I mean, natural land is kind of, like, planned to be transformed to industrial zone. So you vehemently oppose it. But at the same time, you would say, yes, advanced civilization have no problem deleting whole stars. It was kind of, like, unimaginably, like, I mean, more nature would be destroyed, like, in such a process. Like, I mean, you can't even, like, imagine, like, I mean, billion times more. Like, I mean, it's like I mean, demonstrating, like, against, like, the destruction of like, of one piece of natural park, at the same time to think that it makes totally sense to delete billion times the amount of these parks. I mean, I mean, essentially the same purpose of, like, I mean, industrialization. I mean, this because it's the same purpose. So why should they do it? And now, I mean, how all of this relates to the issue of the slide that we've seen? Because if, let's say that these creatures, I mean, that these advanced creatures, they are so power hungry, and let's say that they don't take dark matter into account, and let's say that they didn't find alternative ways to get energy, and that they are so hungry for energy, and that they can only do it by, I mean, getting it from the stars. And let's say that they do not care at all about, like, the environment, and they do not care about, and they are completely, like, they are completely coming, like kind of, like, wild, and like, kind of, like, I mean, like, I mean, they are completely, I mean, they're not thinking at all about, I mean, the consequences of their actions. And it should be asked, I mean, how is it possible that such an immoral civilization becomes so advanced? Because we know that immoral civilizations, I mean, inevitably destroy themselves, or they stay in very primitive situation. Of course, humans are an example of that, but it makes sense, because when you are a cannibal, there aren't many of you, because cannibals eat each other. That's their, I mean, the main characteristics of cannibals is that there cannot be many of them together. It's just impossible. I mean, cannibal cultures could only be small, or not be cannibals, or maybe they can, like, maintain their cannibalism, but only in a ritual, like, symbolic way. But they cannot, like, be true cannibals that, like, sustain on eating each other, and also become very numerous. How is it possible? Because the more cannibals there are, the more they eat each other. So it's, I mean, mathematically it's impossible. But let's say that somehow this kind of, like, paradox was solved, and there is this advanced civilization that doesn't care about nature, and doesn't care about, like, destruction of stars, and that they really need energy, and they are power hungry, and they have to get this energy. Even in that case, the correct way to do it, from their perspective, would not be to build ridiculous domes around stars, but to get closer into the stars, or perhaps living inside the stars, and get the energy directly from the stars without the solar panels that presumably are placed inside like in the interior of the Dyson spheres. Because this way, much more energy could be utilized. Much more energy, because you wouldn't need to build this enormous structure, which is incredibly fit. It's incredible feat of engineering, and you will not lose many energy in the process of conversion and storing the energy. You will be able to use it directly. So the only question so why is it not, like, intuitive to people? Because they think that stars are very, very hot, and it's impossible to live very close to a star or inside a star. And this is not true. First of all, but I mean, it's not true for several reasons, because there are also celestial bodies. What we say when people say stars, I mean, in the past, I mean, they sort of, like, there are two types of celestial bodies. Like, I mean, כוכב לכת וכוכב, like, I mean, like in Hebrew, like, I mean, it's like a star and a moving star, which, I mean, translate today to stars and planets. And also there were, like, a shavit, like, I mean, it's like a moving star with trail or with trailer, which is kind of like which is a comet, it's an asteroid. That, actually, people in the past have seen much more of this, tremendously more of this today because of what I've said in the beginning. That I mean, there was no pollution, and they've seen tremendously more of this. So, but I mean, and this kind of classifications, and later, I mean, after Galileo, people understood that actually the phenomenon of moon is not something unique to Earth, and that there are other moons, and so there is like, I mean, there is also moons that are kind of like planets, but there are planets of other planets. Okay, fine. But then people started to kind of like classify the stars. And the original classification stick to this day, even though it makes no sense, of dwarves and giants, because dwarves aren't actually very small and giants aren't like the biggest. I mean, because in the beginning, initially, people only were able to see relatively the large stars because they are large. So the classification assumed that the large ones are the normal ones. That's why they named like. That's why they name dwarf like what like I mean, you know, there are seven types of dwarfs like according to colors, like I mean, but I mean supposedly there are all sorts of like dwarfs with different colors, and that I mean that are kind of like I mean that they are categories of stars, but it's not true that they are relatively small. It's just that they are relatively small to what could have been seen at the beginning, like I mean when people started to categorize stars with, and at that point they mostly could be able to see the larger ones. Anyway, later people discovered that there are actually more celestial bodies that are. People started to speak about black holes, but not only black holes, also pulsars and quasars and all sorts. So now, and some of these stars actually, I mean, initially were actually that perhaps they are kind of like engineered structures because they emitted, I mean, radiation in like periodic intervals. So people thought maybe it's kind of like, I mean, that these are aliens, but no, they then discovered that this is a natural phenomenon. So as time progressed, and this is still going on, it never stopped, that people understood that the initial categorization, which lied on sorted from antiquity, is just wrong. Like there are actually many types of stars. Not only planets and stars, but many types of what we call stars. It's kind of like, I mean, it's like a whole family of entities, I would say. So some of these entities, or in the common terminology, some of these stars actually are much more comfortable like to live on them or in proximity to them than the soul, like the sun, like the sun that you know, the star that you know the best. But much more important is that there could be other creatures that are different from humans, tremendously so, that can be much more resistant to the supposedly extreme conditions that can be found in proximity to stars or even on the surface of stars. So for these creatures, it's not ridiculous at all to go live inside the stars or very close to the stars. And again, this kind of stars does not necessarily need to be exactly like the sun, like Sol, because there are many types of stars, many types, and they vary tremendously in their in characteristics. But there are also many types of creatures, and creatures can transform themselves when they are advanced enough. They can change their body. And you already are aware of this concept because you have computers, so you understand like the idea of like uploading consciousness. It's not a new thing for humans. Like I mean, they don't know how to do it, but it's certainly something that they hypothesize and think about like since like at least the 1970s, or I mean it's like I mean it was already, I mean Turing himself already wrote about it. So it was actually. People started, humans started to think about it even during the 1940s, because even Turing himself spoke about it, like written about it. But until that, but it only like became more prominent when like during the 1970s, 1980s, when they the idea of like replicant and cyberpunk become more like part of popular culture. But you have been so it's this 40 or 50 years that you are aware of this of the possibility of like uploading consciousness. So they can even transform their bodies. So they can choose bodies that are much more like that they are fine with very high temperature. So you can say, but okay, but how can we know that it's even a possibility? Okay, maybe you can transform. Okay, we can upload consciousness, but how can? But this, you assume that it's even possible that that any type of organism would be able to exist in very high temperature, but we don't know if it's even true. We according to what we know, organism can only survive in temperatures that are relatively very low temperature. Because supposedly, above 50 or 60 Celsius, the water in their body, for some reason you assume that there is water in their body, start to evaporate, and after that, even the rest of the and after that, the carbon in their body, for some reason you assume that there is the carbon in their body, and then the carbon just is melting. So maybe it's just impact. The short answer to this question is that just watch the video. This slide is kind of like an answer to this question, like a definitive answer to this question. A proof, yes, living creatures does not necessarily have water in their body, and that do not necessarily are made out of carbon. That's a fact. And this also answers the Dyson sphere supposedly conundrum. They don't do it because there is no need to do it, because it's immoral to do it, and because if they are really, and they don't need the energy. But if they need the energy, and if they want to get it from the stars and not from dark matter, they can just go to the stars and live inside the stars, and that's it. So I'll go to eat and take a shower, and maybe later I'll speak about the origin story some more.